The country is still reeling from the week-long looting and violence which engulfed KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. As we begin the process of rebuilding, how do we ensure the restoration of law and order to mitigate similar future events? KwaZulu-Natal Premier Sihle Zikalala talks to us tonight on that and more. Premier, good evening, and thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, Thabo, and thanks for having us in your program.
Premier, we can safely say from the report we got in the presidency today that there has been no incident that has been reported. However, very few people can actually tell and say for sure that now the situation is under control. Is that how you would characterize the situation in the province now?
Well, firstly, I would say we are trying to ensure that everything goes back to normal. We started with cleaning campaigns last week Friday, and now most of the companies are cleaning and getting back to work. The roads, your national roads N3 and N2 are operating freely. There is no incident that has been reported today, and therefore we encourage people to try and resuscitate their business and go back into operation.
Now, notably, what has been happening, though, Premier, is this question of what actually took place. Now, are we prescribing the correct medicine if we are not in agreement in the terms of diagnosis as to what the challenge was? So this is what is coming out, and you'll tell me if this is your view, from the Secretary General of the ANC in the province about the events of this past week.
Look, our own view is that it's too early. We are yet to see whether indeed this was an exaggeration. Remember, Chloe, you may not know this, an insurrection or a coup, as some ministers have made reference to, first and foremost, it must be having a distinct and noticeable leadership. It can't just be a chaos of people in different parts of the country whose actions are in essence bordering on counter-revolutionary, that may later on result in a chaos in society that may give rise to a condition for an insurrection. So in our view, we are too far from that. We believe that in terms of our analysis last night, this which we saw happening in the province was an element of looting that was embedded on some tendency towards what may be understood in our own language as a movement, as a counter-revolutionary, where you cause a distraction, you make things completely impossible, and you create a chaos in society without necessarily having a distinct and discernible potential characters or leaders who, in an event where a government was replaced, were going to take over. We don't think that we are at that stage at the moment.
Premier, what do you think? Breaking rank with the president and how he described the situation as a potential insurrection, does that weaken the leadership and the authority of the leadership in managing this situation? And therefore, what's to say about society and how they should view this if yourselves as leaders are not in agreement?
Well, I'm not sure whether as leaders were not in agreement on characterizing the matter at hand. But the departure point is that this started as protest and is escalated into an element of crime which are purely criminal. And it escalated into racial tension. So most of these elements, if you will analyze, they constitute one, the grievance from the community, and that community is genuine, is talking about the release of former president. But two, then there is a situation of the chaos, which emerged to a point of reversing the gains we have made since 1994, whether in terms of public infrastructure or in terms of the economy. That subverts the interest of the revolution of building a truly non-racial, non-sexist and prosperous society. So let alone of that, because compounding the matters also is the instigation of a racial tension between Africans and Indian community in particular. So you will not end in analyzing this matter on one specific case, but you need to analyze it in totality. Yeah. And the analysis must understand that there is, of course, a link between the counter-revolutionary efforts that then culminate into an insurrection. If the situation is not dealt with right now, it can culminate into an insurrection.
But would you agree, though, can we agree on the fact that the mixed messaging weakens the credibility and the authority, particularly of the president in this matter? If fine, I understand, and let's say I take your point that you've got to look at it in the various different elements and the facets of counter-revolutionary that are there, criminality that is there, racial tension that is there. But if there is no agreement amongst the leadership as to what are we going to characterize this as, and then you hear one voice from the Secretary General in the province, one voice from the Minister of Defense, one voice from the President, it creates this confusion that is unnecessary in society.
And that's why we must always try to develop a common understanding and a common interpretation before we become emphatic on issues, because that helps us to provide a clear understanding as to how we characterize the epoch. Yes, we may have not been coherent enough, but I think in terms of identifying the elements that constitute the whole, we are in agreement.
Politicians, to an extent, now playing the front role, but up until, I suppose, 4 or 5 days ago, we had not really seen a noticeable leadership in the front behind the condemning and the stopping of the unrest and the looting that was happening. But then again, you're saying there are no noticeable leaders behind this movement. How do we... who do we arrest? Who do we hold accountable for what happened?
Well, firstly, you said leadership was no way to address and deal with the situation. I think here in KwaZulu-Natal, we've been seized with this matter under difficult conditions, and we have never run away nor shy away from dealing with the issue at hand. Those who must be confronted and arrested are those who planned the violence, and are those who went to loot and to steal, are those who killed people in areas like Phoenix, your Wentworth, and some part of Pietermaritzburg. Those are people who need to be arrested.
But that would be the people that were actors, at least in the external. There are some who are internal, who have been behind this, who would not want to take leadership and take ownership of the situation.
That's where I started. The instigators, those who planned and instigated, those who implemented these acts of criminality, and those who killed people based on racial tension, all of them must be prosecuted, must be arrested and prosecuted.
Looking at that particular situation in Chatsworth and in Phoenix, are those communities now under police control, or are they still being run by members of the community as far as law and order is concerned?
Well, they are now under police control. All of those barricades and everything that was there has been removed. And we have made it clear that only police can police those areas. No one can just stop a car and want to search it and do all of that. We were in Phoenix early today, meeting with bereaved families, and we went around, we checked the whole area and went to the police station, and we are clear that only SAPS must be in charge of securing the people. If there are some security companies, those can be inside, but not stopping people, but patrolling in areas where they are hired to provide their services.
Now, some who live in the province and who've been there for a while, and we're not talking just this week, are saying leadership is trying to put a plaster on a festering wound that has not been addressed for many, many years. This question of racial tension, and whatever means that you would be attempting now would be a cover-up of a situation that has formed a solid foundation. That is, of course, the issue around tensions of the distribution of the economic resources, and the outcasts, the condemned in the province, the natives, I suppose they say that's the word, are still not being listened to, and their issues are not being addressed.
I think it is correct to say these are issues that have been there and always causing problems amongst the citizens of the province, especially between the white Africans, Indians, and Africans. But it's not that nothing is being done. And we acknowledge the point that some of these problems also lead to or contribute in inequality and skewed economy. And that's why we've placed the program of radical socio-economic transformation at the top of our programs. Everything we do, we seek to address the economic imbalance, which is continuing as the legacy of apartheid. So we are clear in that, but also we must try to infuse and socialize our community together so that they will be able to live together without fear of each other.
Yeah. Why has it been such a challenge, Premier, to build this bridge? Others say you are failing to build or create this bridge, particularly behind the Indian community and the black community.
It's not that we are failing. There are a number of areas in KwaZulu-Natal that have Indians and Africans, and we're not so affected. Nevertheless, we must not undermine the problem. It is existing, it is there. Number of efforts have been invested on the program of social cohesion, where we've been bringing together all racial groups. We must indicate that the current form might have been exacerbated by the situation that was taking place, obtaining in the province. And therefore, we should not just locate it outside that. You will remember that this issue emerged through the social media, but at the time it emerged already, the others were already invading the industrial parks. And they were saying after invading industrial parks, then they will go to Indian and white. So those messages that came as part of this unrest also fuel the racial tension.
We continue in a moment with the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Sihle Zikalala. We speak on the military deployment as well as the beefing up of public order policing in the province. When we come back next, let's hear your views tonight on Twitter at Newzroom 405, on 072-110-5584. In Focus continues in a moment. With us tonight here on In Focus, Newzroom Afrika, channel 405 on 072-110-5584, taking your questions and comments tonight for the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Sihle Zikalala. And we are talking, of course, about the situation in the province following the unrest of last week, and how to ensure that such does not happen in the future. Premier, you're saying police would be given more equipment to manage the crowds. Now, in March, the Minister of Police, Bekele, said 598 million rands was spent to prop up the public service order unit. In fact, his words are, the public order policing units are better resourced today than they ever were before. Not only that, he said 6,324 6,324 were trained in this period on better managing of the crowd. We did not see that, though, Premier, during last week.
Yes, indeed, we didn't see such. Even the minister himself was also of a view that we could have done better. in all areas or all organs of the state. And I think it is fair to also, while criticizing, but acknowledge that in some cases, police are not that equipped. For instance, we didn't see any water cannon going out to quell the situation. And that's why we need to ensure that they get more resources to deal with this situation. But that is the task of the minister and the department nationally.
Yeah, and that's precisely the challenge, because we said in March 598 million was spent precisely on that, getting more equipment, getting more water cannons, getting bulletproof vests, getting shields, and getting all that sort of thing to ensure that they are equipped to respond to crowd management. Yet we did not see that. So what is the disconnect, and what are we to say now when you're saying, well, the police are going to be beefed up? Is it just mere talk, or is there something actually going to be done in tangible terms? What measures are we talking about here?
Well, look, that's a space that I think it's a space for the national minister. But what we've realized is that police are undercapacitated in terms of equipment, in terms of vehicles, but even the numbers. KwaZulu-Natal has about 18,000 police, And that on its own will tell you that we've got 18,000 for about 11 million population. And that will tell you the imbalance that exists.
And how many operational numbers and support numbers do you have for public order policing? Can you give us that number?
Well, it will be half of that because, I think it will be half of that. But I'm sure the ministry and the department they are better placed to respond to those issues. What we have raised with the minister, which we have raised also with the president, is that we must ensure that the police are equipped, they are well trained, well supported, and even in terms of numbers, we must increase. And that has been our submission, which I believe the minister will need to consider.
Yeah. I mean,
but I must then proceed. Maybe if I were to proceed,
yes.
We are not only intending to deal with issues through policy. Among others, we must address socio-economic challenges as well as political challenges. Political challenges should be dealt with through political means, but the socio-economic challenges must be dealt with through ensuring services, ensuring economic transformation through government, but also through mediating and ensuring that people are able to live together.
By political solutions, what exactly are you talking about, particularly in relation to this question of leadership in KwaZulu-Natal in support of the rule of law in the country, but also in support of a pardon for former President Jacob Zuma? And where does that sit politically?
Well, I don't think the issue is only about pardon or what, but the issue also is about how do we deal with issues even outside where the court processes, because one of the issues is to ensure unity of the ANC. And unity of the ANC would be important as a foundation upon which we can then build on